Hi, Eric Grant here. In this tutorial video, we're going to show you how to do diamond tufting. Diamond tufting is a luxurious and elegant upholstery technique where fabric or leather is pulled tight and secured with a button to create a characteristic diamond-shaped pattern. The first task for this project is laying out your buttons to determine the look you want and the size of your diamonds. Okay, this is the size that we want for our diamond tufting. Obviously, it can vary. I've labeled the top because the top is a little bit bigger than the sides. And then you want to find the center. So all I did is measure, and I've obviously marked it with crosshairs to find the center. Now, placing the buttons is totally a preference, and you want to place them by sight. So these need to be formed like a diamond. So I'm going to put 3 across the top, and you can put more if you'd like. So I'm going to put, let's see, 4 along the bottom here. The whole idea is to put them in a pleasing manner, and then move them around until you're happy here. So let's show you what it looks like when I'm done. 3 in this row, and then 4 in this row, and then I'll show you what we are moving around if I don't like them. Your diamonds can vary in size from, say, 6.5 inches in height to about 4.5 inches in width. And that would be a small diamond, like what we're doing here. But they can also be a large diamond, say 10 inches to 9 inches in height to 6 inches to 7 inches in width. Just know that each button will take up at least 1 inch of fabric, both vertically and horizontally, in your fabric. So you must take that into consideration. And the more fabric you take up obviously means you have less fabric to work with, which may mean that you have to join fabric panels together depending on the size of your panel that you're making. And that is not covered in this video. So you may want to make larger diamonds or fewer rows depending on the size of your project, so you don't have to join fabric panels together. Okay, so here's a general rough thing of what I'd like to accomplish. 3 on the bottom, 3 on the top, 4, 3, and 4. Now, for your diamond, what you want, what's optimal is to have this height and the spacing here to be about half of the height here. Obviously, that's not right here. And you want this one to be in the middle. So I'm going to drop this one down and this down, because that's the middle line. So start your spacing and position things accordingly. So get it, and this isn't going to be totally accurate here. We're going to do the accurate things after we get our basic measurements. You want to try to do it by eye first. But that's why we put the center lines on here, so that we can actually get at least the middle ones exactly accurate. So I'm going for what looks good to me. And you can always add more or add less. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my measuring tool, and I'm going to measure the average. So this one from top to bottom is 6.5, kind of like where I told you it would be, about 6.5. And if I measure across, that one's 5, this and a half, that one's 5.5. That one's 4.5. That one's about 4.25. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this in a little bit, move this one in a little bit. I think that would equal about 4.5. 4.5. This is a little bit closer there. 4.5 would probably be about right. Yeah, 4.5, and then 6.5. So we're going to do our diamonds at 6.5 for the height and 4.5 for the width. So let's move all these off, because I think that looks good. So the width is 4.5, and we're going to start from the center. 4.5 divided by 2 is 2.25. So 2.25 would be right here. 2.25 is 2.25. I'm going to put a dash there. We could actually do it like this. This is probably easier. I'm going to put this on 2 1/4 right in the middle line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike a line parallel to the middle line. And then I'm going to come over here 2 1/4. And we're going to strike a line there as well. So I'm going to do lines 2 1/4, 2 1/4, and 2 1/4, and same thing over here. And then I'll show you what we do for the other one. Now for the height of our diamond, it's 6 1/2. Half of that is 3.25. So from the middle line, 3.25, 3 1/4, and down from here, 3 1/4, 3 1/4, 3 1/4. So we're going to strike lines at 3 1/4. So now I'm just going to put the buttons on here. I probably wouldn't do this, but I think it's helpful for you. Now we know exactly where all the buttons go, and this might be helpful for you so that we know where to drill. So the exact placement is now known. So what I do now is I mark each one of those locations with my marker, and then I can tell exactly where I need to drill.
Our diamonds are prepped on our backer board. It's now time to cut our 2-inch foam to size.
I recommend that you use a fairly firm foam, and it must be about 2 inches in thickness. So I'm going to put my board on here, and I want the edges of the foam to be a 1/2 inch past the board. So I'm going to measure and make sure that we are exactly a 1/2 inch there. And I've got an edge over here that's rather raw because we get the scrap foam from Sailrite that we can't sell the customers, so I'm going to have to cut it at a 1/2 inch here. And we're going to mark around here so that this is a 1/2 inch bigger than my board. I'm going to use the Sailrite blade foam saw, but you can also do this with an electric kitchen knife to cut foam.
Now we'll drill holes in our backer board and then our foam.
I'm using a 5/16 inch drill bit, and you can use something a little bit different, but you want something big enough that you can easily get your needle through. And we're just going to drill right on every one of those spots right through our board. I'm doing it over a trash can to keep the waste going in the can. We're going to place our board on top of our foam and make sure that we have a 1/2 inch around the perimeter. That looks good like that. And I'm just going to take my marker and I'm going to mark through every one of these holes, making sure that I'm marking the foam. We're going to use the Sailrite foam hole cutter set, and there are 3 different sizes. The Sailrite website will say which size to use for which button size. We're using a 3/4 inch button, so the Sailrite website says to use the 1 inch hole cutter for that. We're going to put it in our drill and tighten down the chuck. Not a bad idea to use dry silicone lubricant, or in my case I'm using McLube to lubricate the cutter. Just makes it go through the foam a little bit better. Use some sort of a cutting pad on the bottom side. It will damage your tabletop if you don't. And then position it directly over your hole and cut. You can either take out the foam and cut your next hole, or leave the foam in. Let me show you what I mean by leave the foam in. If you leave the foam in, which makes production pretty quick, then the foam just stays in your hole. And in doing that, at the end, all you'd have to do is pop out the foam. So it's your choice. Okay, you may be asking, why don't you just use a hole cutter with teeth? Well, the teeth can actually grab the foam and tear it up.
We have a few more steps to prepare our foam, and we'll wrap it in batting.
If you've done it right, you should have the holes almost in the center. They're not perfect, but we're only going to be pulling through those holes. So I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to use Cushionrite foam and fabric adhesive, and I'm going to spray the board because we're going to glue these together. And I'm going to spray the back of the foam like that. We're going to let the solvents evaporate a little bit before we bond them together. When it becomes tacky and it doesn't transfer to your finger, it's ready to bond. And we're going to put it on so that we have the 1/2 inch around the perimeter here. And the holes are fairly centered. I'm going to turn it over so I can look at the 1/2 inch more than anything. See, I'm off. Nice thing is it will be able to be peeled up as long as you get to it right away and be repositioned. Okay, nice. Okay, so now we're going to have folds of fabric coming down the edges from some of these holes. So from these, this, but not from this one. So if you'd like, you could just mark it lightly with a marker, knowing exactly where each one of those is going to need to be slit, because we're going to slit the foam to allow those folds to kind of sink in at those locations. So not at these, obviously, because those diamonds don't have a fold to go to the edge. Then we're going to take a hacksaw blade, which actually works pretty well. I'll do it over here so you can kind of see it. And we're going to cut into the foam, kind of going back and forth. And we're going to cut in to about 1 inch or so, or a little bit less than 1 inch. So right about there. Then you don't have to be exactly scientific about this. And we're going to do that at all these locations. We now have a 1/2 inch or polyester, okay? So I'm going to put this up on top of the polyester, and we're going to glue this to the top of the foam. Oh, before you do this, check to make sure that you have every one of these slits. So I always do this to make sure that I've got every one of them cut. And I already did that. So I'm going to glue the side, because we want it to stick to the side. And this way I don't get glue all over my table. I get it on my polyester. I'm going to do that to all 4 sides first. After that's done, I'm going to put some glue on my polyester. And then I'm going to put some glue on the top of this, because I've already got it on the sides. Because we're going to glue the polyester to it. Okay, so we got it on there. We're just going to go around the sides. So here's some rather crappy scissors. Try to stay flush with the top. No reason to have this go all the way to the back side. Now at the corners, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop it off like this. So basically it takes out all that yuckiness, or bulk I should say. We're going to do that to all 4 corners. Okay, now comes the fun part. You have to find your holes. You can feel them. And you have to take your scissors and you have to actually just cut an opening so that your button can kind of sink down into it. So that's all you need to really do. Boop, boop, boop. Do this for every hole, just so you can get your button in there. I like to stick my finger in there to make sure that that's the hole. And then for the sides, let's do one side just as a reference. Let's open up this hole, because this is going to have that slit, and I go across to allow this batting to open it up for the slit. Okay, that's all we do.
In this chapter, we'll show you how to calculate for the cut size of fabric that's required.
Okay, so we have all of our holes done. Now we need to determine how much fabric we need to cut, because each one of these holes is going to take up 1 inch. So let's do for this measurement first. Where's our, which row has the largest number of buttons? This one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to add 4 inches to this. So to measure for this, we're going to lift our panel up, and we're going to measure 3 extra inches in from the board, just so we have some extra fabric. And we're going to measure around to 3 extra inches over here. Oops, I got to turn the tape measure around. So we're going to measure to 3 extra inches over here which is 33 inches. So 33 plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is 37. So 37 this way. For this row, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 only. So we add 3 to this. So we're going to measure from the Backerboard 3 inches, and we're going to go all the way around, wrapped around to this. That's 30 inches. Add 3 inches to that, and that's 33 inches. So we're going to cut our fabric 33 inches by 37 inches. The fabric we're using is Krypton Home Hess. It's available in all kinds of colors. This one's actually called Vapor, but there are beautiful colors of this, and it's really got a phenomenal feel. I always like to cut out my fabric first because I have to make buttons, and I like to know that I have plenty of fabric so that I can take the excess and make my buttons next. So this is the piece I need.
We accidentally cut our fabric too large, but it'll still work. We're going to mark the placement of the first row of buttons.
So now we're going to determine, we're going to strike a line on our fabric for the top row. This is our top of our panel. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to measure again 3 inches down from the top. This is for our pole and for stapling. And we're going to measure to that row, which is 8.5 inches. We're going to take up an inch for this button, but it's only going to be a 1/2 inch. So we're going to go 9 inches for this row. So we're going to strike a line at 9 inches for this row because we're going to take a 1/2 of that inch because we're only going to be doing it right to the middle of this row. Okay, this is going to be the top edge, and I've already struck a line at 9 inches down where we measured. And I'm just, for this fabric, this is the back side of the fabric. I'm using a chalk pencil, and I'm going to strike a line with this all the way across. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric and I'm going to fold it in half to find the middle. And I'm just going to put a mark here to indicate where the middle is and unfold it back side again. So this is the middle. And then I'm going to strike a line all the way down the middle, making sure that this is straight. I'm just going to use the clear acrylic ruler to do this to make sure this is perpendicular to this. So this line is perpendicular, like that. And we'll follow this line all the way down because this line could be a reference to make sure that our fabric doesn't go askew as we are putting in our buttons. So since the distance is 4.5 inches, we want to add 1 inch. So that'd be 5.5 inches. Where do I get the 1 inch? Well, a 1/2 inch of the fabric is going to sink down here for the button, and a 1/2 inch is going to sink down here for the button. And we're going to do the same thing over here. So from the middle position, 5.5 inches, 5.5 inches. So from the middle position, I'm going to mark 5.5 inches with my chalk, and over here, 5.5 inches. And this is all I'm going to mark on the fabric. This will hopefully keep our fabric straight as we continue with our buttons all the way down.
In this chapter, we're going to show you how to make upholstered buttons using the handy press.
This is the handy press, and it has a base on it that is a prototype base to make the handy press portable. So we're not selling it yet, but it will be coming in the future. It's pretty awesome. This is the button cover die and hole cutter available from Sailrite for the appropriate upholstery buttons that we're making. I'm going to take my decorative fabric and I'm going to fold it up several times to make this process go quickly. There we go. I'm going to put a piece of cardboard in here. We've already set up the tool. We have plenty of videos that show how to do that, so you can always go to the Sailrite website and watch those. And this is how easy it is to use this tool. I need to back off the pressure when I use that many layers of fabric. Where are all my pieces that I need? Oh, there they are. Look at that. Beautiful. We take our bottom with the wire eye, put it in the base. We take our fabric circle with the right side of the fabric circle facing down. Make sure you get one layer and put it on top of here. we take our button, metal piece. You have to hold this in your hand because the bottom has to come down. And then you take the wooden dowel that comes with it and hold this in your hand pretty firmly because this is a pretty thick piece of fabric, and push down hard until it sinks down in there like that. That's what it looks like. Kind of looks weird. Put it in here. Doesn't take much force, and then just to press the lever like that, take out the top die. And sometimes it can be a little bit stubborn getting it out, and I like to just take an awl and pop it out like that. Take a look at that. Isn't that sweet? I would just make them, I think I have to do 17 of these. Okay, you want to use a very strong twine. We didn't get this at Sayrite. And what I typically do is I just make it around 3 foot or so for each button and just cut it. And then what I'll do is I will run it through kind of like a luggage tag. So we double it up and we run the loop through the eye like that. Then we run the ends through the loop, and this creates kind of like a luggage tag like that. And we'll do this for all the buttons.
Okay, now comes the fun part, installing the tufted buttons.
Okay, you're going to need a long needle, that's what I have here, and a regulator is a good idea to have for this. So now we're going to take our fabric and we're going to turn it over with this top edge basically right at our button, and you can see that there's our distance spacing. We're going to take our loaded needle, and you only need a couple inches of twine to be past the needle eye, and we're going to insert it through the top of the fabric right on our center locale. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be close. We're going to go through the board and we're going to pull on the line. So it goes into our hole. We're going to apply tension and pull on the string to bury that button down till we're pleased, and that looks pretty good. And I'm going to staple it to the back side. I'm going to staple it with 2 staples. We'll do more later on. Okay, that one looks pretty good, so we move on to the next one. To do that one, to keep this straight, we have a reference for this. So I lift this up, there's where we marked it. I've got my needle ready for the next button, and all I'm going to do is insert it at that locale, which keeps it nice and straight. We're going to go through our hole. Pull it through, grab the twine on the back side, and we're going to tension it. And what we want is we want the tension here. We want the fabric to be straight, but it is straight because we drew a line, but we want this to be tensioned so it's taut. And that looks pretty good. We don't want to pull it down so far that it's super taut and actually creates a valley. We just want this fabric to be fairly taut. And then we'll staple this button when it is, and it looks great like that, so we're going to staple it. I'm going to keep my pressure on that string just like I have it. I'm going to do this to keep it from slipping. And we're going to inspect it. Okay, so is it taut? Yes, it's nice and taut right there. And that looks good there. So now we're going to do the same thing with this one. Okay, same thing. This is the last one that we have referenced. So we're going to go through that locale. We're going to push it through, and we're going to tension it. Okay, we're looking for this to go straight across. We're tensioning the button. We're making sure that the fabric is taut from button to button. We have no pleats here because the fabric's going to be buried here. That looks pretty good. I'm going to staple it on the back side. Staple this. The next row has 4 holes. So we're going to work with either this one or this one next. I'll choose this one. Now we want the pleats to all fold the same direction so that they look good and the dust doesn't collect in the folds. If we fold them up, dust could collect in them since this is the top. So we're going to fold down. We're going to start to create the folds so we can work with them after they're created. My next hole is right here. I can feel it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold or train the fabric to fold down like this, and I want my fabric to go straight down from this location. I don't want to start twisting it. And I'm going to push the fabric into that hole, and it should fall right about there, and everything's nice and tight, and the fabric's coming straight down. I'm not twisting it at all, and I've prepared my needle already, and my fabric is tucked down, so I'm going to insert it right at that locale. I'm going to find the hole in the bottom, and I'm going to pull it through. Okay, and then I'm going to push the button down to about the same locale that it was before. Pull on my twine on the back side, and that looks about the same as the other ones. And I can work some of these things out after the button's secured. So right there looks good. I'm going to keep my tension on the back. You can see my hand back here. And I'm going to staple it in place. We could always modify it if we have to. Okay, turn it over. Here's where the regulator comes in handy. So I'm going to take my regulator, and you could do this afterwards as well, but you can fold these in so that your folds look really good. You can fold the fabric in, and you can work these out to make sure that the tucks look good. You could tuck more fabric in, pull the fabric over to the sides, and that looks pretty good right there. So we're going to do the same thing to this one over here. There's the hole here. And sometimes what I do is I actually will take my finger in there to kind of make the hole bigger, and then I start working my fabric. So we're going to take this one down. Fabric comes straight down. We're going to work train our fabric to fold down. Like that. We're going to tuck our fabric in there with our folds going down like that until we get it looking nice. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I've got my needle loaded. Everything looks nice. I'm going to go ahead and penetrate the fabric. Find my hole. Push my needle down to where I like it. Pleats are going down, looks nice. And I'm going to staple this one in position. Okay. Starting to come together. You can take a regulator and work it, but I actually like that one. That came out pretty nice. Okay, the next one's right here. Make sure that it's able to be pushed down. We're going to create a pleat that goes down. If you need to adjust this pleat here, you can sometimes just make sure it folds the right direction. We're going to create the pleat going here. And remember, this is going to go fold to the edge, but we do that after we're done with all the pleats, the diamond pleats, that is. This is looking good. We want the fabric to come straight across here. We want this to be taut, going this direction. So push my finger down there. That actually looks good. Make sure that's fairly taut. When I put a button in there, and that's looking nice. I've already loaded my needle with my button. I like that. I'm going to push it through. Grab my twine. Nice fold, nice tension, nice and straight, nice depth. Staple it in place. Holding tension.
I didn't think your depth was very good.
Oh yeah, look, yeah. Seth's saying the depth's not very good, and he's right. It's not the same as the other ones. So let me show you how I changed that, because you can do it just by releasing one of these staples. So I'll do this, release this one, pull it out with my pliers, and then I usually don't even check. And then I pull this just a little bit like that, and then I restaple, and let's see if that corrects it. Yes, it's much better. Okay, so I've already done this one over here. So this 4 is done. So now we're going to concentrate on the middle one again. And the procedure is basically the same. We're going to train our fabric to fold down, folds going down, and we're going to find this hole, stuff it down, make sure the fabric's going straight, make sure this is going to be taut, and we can always use our regulator to push those folds in better if we have to. It's looking pretty good right there. Fabric's coming down straight, folds look pretty good. I like it. I didn't load my needle, but I'm going to push down here, and that should stay in relatively good spot while I load my needle. Okay, before I put that button in there, notice there's a little fold here that this button's kind of keeping in place. You can actually roll this fabric around and get that fold out. See that? And sometimes you might want to release that button. That's why we have preliminary staples. That button's a little bit crooked, but that can be fixed later on. We just want to get all these in the right spot. So that looks pretty good there. Yeah, I like it. Okay, right there. Yeah. All right, you pretty much get the idea. I think we might be able to, I don't know, move on, maybe in a way. Let's use our regulator a little bit and work these out. You can see this one's not very neat looking. Again, if you're not happy, you can always undo anything you want and redo it again. But I think that looks pretty good. So the next one we're going to work on, right here and here. There's only 3 buttons here. Then we'll do the 4 buttons down here. We have a slit here. We don't have a pleat here because we have a slit here. So if you get confused, you can always look underneath. So the only pleat we have here is down here. So you got to keep this straight, keep this straight. Okay, so I'm going to tuck my fabric in here, and we're going to make sure this is taut, make sure this is taut, and that looks good, and I've got my last button. I'm going to go through, just like we've done before, and the outside edges are not done yet. Okay. And if you're not happy with it, you can always insert the button in a different spot, but I think I'm happy with that. It's a little bit tight here. See how it's pulling it down? I'm actually going to take it out and redo that one because I'm pulling it down too much. Yeah, so I'm going to penetrate in a little bit different spot right there. Reinserting it. Let's see what that looks like. Yes, see, much better. All right, we're going to staple to the back, and I'll show you what's next. No pleat here. So now what we want is we want these to basically be in line. And with the regulator, what you can do is actually, let's see, find a row that's a little bit off. This one's a little bit off from this. So what you can do with your regulator is you can actually tuck it in here, and you can roll this fabric around and actually get it to fold in a different spot. So see right here, see this fabric, it'll roll in and tuck in. So you can actually get everything to line up beautifully by doing that. So you can work with it as much as you want, or if you're satisfied with the way it looks, you can just go with it the way you want. But feel free to tweak it as much as you'd like. A regulator helps a ton to do that.
The excess fabric on the edges of our backer board will be taken up in a pleat directly in line with the button.
So now we work with the outside edges. It doesn't matter which edge we're going to work on. Well, let's start with this one. We can fold either this direction or we can fold that direction. Doesn't matter, but we want the edges to be consistent. So if you remember right, we have a slit in the foam to allow for this. So we bring the fabric over to the edge. Let's just fold, let's say that direction. So what I'm going to do is I like to start, there are many different ways you can do this, but what I like to do is I like to fold my fabric nicely coming straight down from this and actually tack it in place. So I'm going to create the fold to take up the excess fabric, and I'm going to fold the fabric under and make that come straight down from there. And I'm going to pull on it, but I don't want it to pull a steep valley. See, like that's just too much. But I want it to be a nice gradual valley. I'm going to pull on this one as well, and I think that looks pretty good like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it with my two fingers like this, and on the back side, one staple. Okay, so that's folded nicely there and looks good there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to straighten out my fabric so that it's walking this direction. And we're going to work on this one. It's folded this direction, so we're going to do the same thing in that regard. We're going to fold it and take this excess fabric and tuck it over here so that it's going to fold that way as well. I hope you can see this. Tucking it in, taking up the excess. There we go. Okay, so pulling that in, folding this over. And that looks pretty good. You can always take it up if you don't like it. I like that. It's going right down that button. And I'm going to tack it in place really close to the edge with my finger and staple it. Now, before we move on, let's make sure that we're happy with this. So I'm going to pull this down, and I'm just going to put a staple here. We'll come back and staple it more securely, but that looks pretty good. So let's go to this one. Same thing. We're going to fold going the same direction. So now we're not going to concentrate on the corners. We're going to do all the edges in this similar fashion, and then we'll concentrate on the corners. Let's get this little wrinkle out of here. Now we've got this one secured, and we can use a regulator and we can push the fabric in to make it look really good, or we can tuck the fabric a little bit more anywhere we want. But before we move on to any of the edges, I really like that. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to apply a little bit of tension like this, and we're going to put staples all along this edge, giving it a little bit of tension as we go. We're going to stop at the corners right about here. So when we reach the corner a few inches, we don't want to go all the way to the corner, right there. Now we're going to proceed in doing the same thing at these edges, and we can go either direction, just making sure that we're going the same direction on each edge.
And now we're going to tuck the corners for a finished look.
So inspect your buttons. If you need to release some of the tension or tighten them down, you can. Now's the time to do it. I'm happy with them, and I've already secured most of them. I left one of them unsecured so you can see how we do it. All we want to do is just install a few more staples. So I'll go like this. And you can tell I've already done the other ones. Cut the cord. Now what we're going to do, and I've already done it on this side, is we're going to reduce some of this fabric because it makes it harder to work with the corners since we have everything secured. And we're going to work with the 4 corners. 2 of the corners I already have done. For the corners, what we want to do is we want to create a tuck here. So basically something that looks like that. So we want to reduce some of this fabric, and we want to leave basically a flag here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into this corner right about like that, like at a 45-degree angle, and that leaves some of the fabric up here. And we want to make this corner look good and fairly tight, and so I'm going to hold the fabric up here and put a few staples right like that, and we're going to secure this so that this is covered, this corner right up here. Okay, now with that covered, I'm going to take this off right here because that's going to get in our way, because this is going to come over and cover that completely. So now what I'm going to do is take away this excess here, because this is going to fold under. So I'm going to go from here and kind of create a V like that and go to there. So you can see there's a V out of this. This folds in, and we create kind of like a pleat in this. And this folds under. I hope you can see that. That goes in, that goes under, and this creates a nice little corner like that. And this should look fairly nice like that. And then you can always take your regulator and you can press that in, and everything should be covered nicely. There had a little wrinkle in it. We can always do this and get that to lay down flat, and put a staple here to get that to lay down well. And then let's tuck this one more time. Fold, fold, fold. And you can work with this as long as you want to get everything to lay as nicely as you want, but that's about how easy it is. And then we've got a lot of fabric down here. I'm going to put this on the table and show you how we can reduce this, or we can fold it in a little bit more. There's just too much fabric here, so I'm going to take this off. That way it doesn't show up as much on the bottom. And I think that looks pretty good like that. And so I'm going to staple it. Use a regulator to make it look good. Yeah, I think that looks pleasing.
See the full materials and tools listed in the description below. We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. We are close to 500,000 subscribers, so please help us reach that goal and click the bell to be notified of new tutorial videos when they become available. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.